Brilliance Audio presents Broke in America, Seeing, Understanding, and Ending U.S. Poverty by Joanne Samuel Goldblum and Colleen Shaddox, performed by J.D. Jackson and the authors.
If we want to address poverty, to understand and end it once and for all, we have to see it first. And that presents a challenge for many of us. Poverty has been largely invisible during the lifetimes of most U.S. Americans who are not themselves poor. That is changing. As poverty becomes more common, we will either confront it or become a nation resigned to overwhelming economic inequality. Even before the pandemic caused a prolonged shutdown of the U.S. economy, a growing number of households were struggling to pay their bills. In short order, things are going to get much better or much worse. Economic and racial segregation have always been common here. Slavery on these shores predates the founding of the United States, and some European arrivals came here as indentured servants. As we'll discuss in Chapter 9, continued inequity is no accident. A century of government policy has carefully constructed homogeneous communities. People in poverty have had few housing options outside isolated neighborhoods. There is generally little reason for people who do not live in these neighborhoods to visit them. By definition, these areas do not have shopping or employment opportunities that would draw in outsiders. Upper-income U.S. Americans are unlikely to have neighbors who are poor, or classmates or co-workers, except perhaps subordinates. Literally unable to see their countrymen and women in different economic classes, U.S. Americans with more money have bought into complex and damaging mythologies that blame people, not systems, by portraying low-income people as lazy, given to vice, or in some other way inherently flawed. Their conception of poverty and people in it is overly dependent upon representations in media. However, movies and television largely exclude them. A survey of the 100 highest-grossing U.S. films found that only 2 directly addressed poverty: My Fair Lady and Lady and the Tramp. When Hollywood does put lower-income characters in the picture, the results tend to reinforce negative stereotypes, as public policy expert Stephen Pimpare writes in a blog entitled The Poverty of American Film. When a character is poor or homeless, that is ordinarily the most important thing about them. And when movies try to explain why people are in such a state, the causes are rooted in individual failure or a dramatic, tragic event. There is almost never a sense of the political and economic forces that create poverty and make it a common occurrence. Blaming people for their poverty serves a function, obviating the need for policy change or a reallocation of resources. It relieves us, the viewer, of the obligation to press public institutions to operate more equitably. It reassures us that the world is as it is for a reason. And even if things are grim for some, it's ultimately their own fault or the hand of God. There is, either way, nothing to be done. Even journalism can be a poor source of information about poverty for two reasons. One, there is not nearly enough reporting on the topic in the United States, with only a handful of news organizations making poverty an actual beat. And two, journalists come to their profession with the same biases that muddle the broader society, and that affects the work they produce.